All right, welcome to Social Distillation, the submarine still of the internet, where we attempt to drop the bead and pour white lightning straight onto your brain. What are we talking about today, Samuel?
We've got our first episode of Winter's Heart, and
The
the
prologue,
prologue,
which
which I think is the longest one in the series.
So, speaking of white lightning, guess what I forgot?
You forgot.
I forgot to bring all those peaches.
Oh,
no,
Yeah.
we'll get it some other
That's
time.
a bummer because that was good. I was hoping we could replicate what happened last time, which was that we just went and we bought some really good peach schnapps. That's what happened. Yeah. So when I was flipping through, I had that thought of, well, even if we only get through the prologue in this first episode, we'd still make it about 100 pages. So still make good time.
And in the paperback, it's 86 pages.
So I do kind of want to get to the first chapter, even though I don't want to get to the first chapter, because I forget that it starts with Perrin.
Yeah, and
Getting to the slog.
Yeah. And there's a lot to talk about there in griping, because we have complained a fair bit about that. But the prologue itself, opening up, is
one of my favorite prologues.
And is a big reason why this is one of my favorite books in the whole series. It starts off with the Tower Hunters, the Aes Sedai, who accidentally and inadvertently went about hunting the Black Ajah. Hi everybody. Yeah.
We're in the same room, by the way.
So
So this is one of my favorite late storylines in the whole book.
uh-huh.
And this is probably my favorite section of that storyline right here, where they finally break through and they break the ice.
They do, and it's intriguing how they do it, because the Tarangreal torture device that I think would go a long way towards bolstering the numbers of the children if people knew about this.
Well, and it makes you wonder, because she does muse that. I wonder if this was the use for this
thing.
And I'm thinking of all these other uses that could be there, and I'm like, they pick the worst and most horrible thing you could do.
The worst and most horrible thing you can do.
What you can make somebody,
because what you can make somebody experience horribly, you can also make them experience in a good way as well.
I was listening to Peterson on the way down, so of course I'm thinking, boy, what because he was actually talking about this. Did you listen to the Douglas Murray interview, his most recent one?
Yes.
So he was talking about this with fears and phobias, that there's a technique that you use to get someone over that. Well, could you imagine, you don't have to, do it in the literal physical way that he described it. You could just, all right, sit down on this chair, and now we are going to see it in your mind's eye. You get to fully experience it. And so what could you do with that?
That was even darker than what I was thinking. I was thinking something more along the lines of like a Matrix style training tool. Just plug them into the chair and give them a situation and see how they handle it, kind of thing.
That too.
You could put them in a real life situation without them actually being in danger.
Well, besides that's what I was listening to on the way down. I think the other reason my mind goes there is that we're told that before the bore was drilled, the Age of Legends was an idyllic utopia. And so my thinking is, this may have been how they used it once the War of Power started, but I would imagine it had a much more benign use, because who was it who was it Bilal about talking about how he and Lews Therin rediscovered sword fighting, and it was a sport, it was a game, until they, until war came back and violence came back into the world via the Dark One. So
well, it could have been used in this way because one of the other comments in her head was, there's so little crime in Tarvalon. And this being like the utopia, there's so little crime, we need one or two of these tools to make sure that there's none.
That's a good point. And because we are told that, I think, very early on about how nobody steals in Tarvalon because, you know, on the rare occasion it happens, nobody knows what happens, but thieves are taken to the tower and they leave and they get out of the city as fast as they can, and they're like, they spread the word.
Well, I
Don't
would
go
just say
there.
thank goodness for the Darkfriends that all the ones that tried to kill Matt died, because otherwise they would know there was a plot to try to kill these Tavaren, because they would have had him plugged into this chair. But
Yeah.
Jordan likes to tie up loose ends, falling off buildings and landing on knives.
Oops. Did you have any other thoughts in this first part of the prologue?
The not to beat a dead horse that we've beaten a million times, but the whole hierarchy thing, because the person who originally was sent on the mission is like subjugate in the whole thing now because of this one person
Yeah,
that came in.
she's been turned into a wallflower in her own mission, where I mean, really, literally, because you're just stuck against the wall, just watching what everyone else is doing, running through her own thoughts about all this, which, is important.
Well, and semi-spoiler here, I'm comfortable saying it because we've already said it before, is Elida's the worst, but she's not a dark friend. But even the Black Kajah thinks she's a dark friend. That's how bad it is.
That's a good point. Yes, she must be, because I do.
Of course, we as the reader already know why all the reports are getting to everybody, because of the chat near the end one with Alvier.
Yeah, and that is going to, that nugget is going to lead to the Black Kajah hunters kind of figuring some of this out.
Which is, I mean, it's just funny, the whole theme throughout this whole thing, when we look at just certain characters, now that we're really over analyzing everybody, Elida and Eridol are synonymous. Elida broke everything despite the Dark's machinations because she's just a bad person. Eridol broke everything to the extent that Trollocs are afraid to go there because they were just bad people. Hayden Fane is another example. So these people that are just horrible, horrible people. It's a different kind of evil.
So the other thing that I noted when I was flipping through was here on page 21, where they finally break her, and you get the forswearing of all oaths, which we've seen a little bit of before, and the physical pain that. But then when she finally answer truthfully, "Are you Black Kajah?" "I am." The words creaked as if Talin's throat were rusty. The simple words froze Singh in a way she had never expected. She had set out to hunt the Black Kajah, after all, and believed in her quarry as many sisters did not. She had laid hands on another sister, on a sitter, and helped bundled Talin along deserted basement hallways wrapped in flows of air, had broken a dozen tower laws, committed serious crimes, all to hear an answer she had been nearly certain of before the question was asked. Now she heard it. The Black Kajah really did exist, etc., etc. The very human response of I'm certain what the answer is, but it's still not real until it's said out loud. And then things suddenly become even more serious, because now it is definitively real.
We all have something like that, where you know something, and you know it, but you hear it, or you see it, or you finally get the absolute definitive truth on it, and you're just like floored even still. And really, I can't think of anything bigger for someone like herself, who's been. She talks about how old she is and how long she's been in the tower.
Now this is one of those
spots where I think
Jordan should have been more differentiating of names,
because I kept having to relook who's
Sienny
or who's Siren.
Yep.
And I kept getting them mixed up, and I'm like, this is like the two major players here, other than Bavara. But yeah, it's you have to understand her being floored by it. and she was prepared for it, not thinking the others would,
Mhm.
which is the one that was kind of in denial. Yukiri.
Yeah, I think Yukiri was the one that was most hesitant and in denial. I like how just a couple pages later, then when they bring up the Saladar spies, and it's almost, of course, the other sitters are, you know, shocked, but to Pavar and Sayin, it's you know, offhand. Which mentions it here, let's drop another bomb, but it doesn't really go off because it's offhand, and it's, well, we just got done doing this.
Giggity, doesn't go off.
All right, and then we get to
Elaine, which eventually becomes a very annoying
Mhm.
storyline, and actually the first part of it is annoying to me. The becoming queen part section of this is annoying, and then we get to the other part, which I memed it, so the cover meme
See,
is an original.
I actually like this. I think this is I don't think it's gotten annoying yet. I think this is pre-annoyance. I remember being really annoyed in Crossroads and Knife of Dreams, but I think what I like about it here is that you see her struggling. Not, I mean, she has a good head on her shoulder. She has good teaching. She's had more practice than she, probably or definitely would have had things gone the normal route. So she's had a lot of practice, practical application. But I mean, it's not just the one thing I like about Elaine's storyline here going forward. Really, I think its only redeeming value, frankly, is that there's this theme, and I think you see this when I've mentioned before how Jordan said, don't expect every thread to be tied at the end of the series. There are going to be mysteries that remain. There are going to be, people or plot points that just kind of disappear into the ether, because that's life. It's we don't have all the answers. We don't know all the stuff. And so I think that's part of what he's doing with Elaine's storyline. I just think, much like Perrin's storyline here, he spends way too long on it when it could have been wrapped up a lot easier. But the basic point is, it's not happily ever after. It's not huzzah, the princess is back and everybody's happy. No, there's politics, there's egos. The ego is a big part of it that Elaine is going through here, of having to deal with the people that her mother wronged while she was under the influence of Ravine. The one thing, and I think we've talked about this before, that always annoyed me is that was never brought up prominently and forcefully, because
she makes mention of it in this chapter.
Yeah,
it's a story that's been put out there, and I can't imagine that it wasn't put out there by anybody but the people in her camp. But people didn't believe it.
And
realistically, that's the downside of Balefire. There's just no evidence. It's gone.
But obviously, you're going to think, okay, well, it's gonna be hard to treat Elaine as both daughter heir and Aes Sedai. But here are a half dozen full, have the face and everything Aes Sedai, and they're telling it to you. So yeah, that's not going to perhaps percolate out into the masses, but it should have been she should have been able to use that as a more forceful avenue of solidifying her power.
Well, except to me, I mean, in thinking metaphysically here, that would be a, if I'm say I'm a noble of another house is questioning, that actually might drive me in a different direction than all of them are going right now. It might drive me in the direction of, oh, well, we do need the Dragon Reborn, because he's the only one that can fight,
and he's the one that took care of this particular
and he's the one that took care of this.
Yeah,
it's almost a double-edged sword there. Like, so it
adjudicates Morghast
a little bit, because, well, what can you do? It's compulsion, right? And who's to say what the Forsaken can do? A normal person thinks the Forsaken can show up in your bed and
children, right?
snatch your children, right?
But
But
the other side of that is,
the other side of that
we don't
is,
need a normal queen
well,
right now.
you know what? We don't need a
We
normal.
need the dragon banners up.
We need the dragon banners up. We need the
There's a
Aiel
greater
here.
danger.
There's a
need the
greater
dragon
danger.
banners.
Desperate
We need the
times,
dragon
desperate
banners.
measures, and all that. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is how tyrants
So
rise.
this is how
It isn't
tyrants
desperate
rise.
times,
It isn't
right?
desperate time, right?
And she gets
a little tyrant here too, with her building of armies and stuff.
She does, and to the extent that it shocks Lady Dylan very, openly.
And I would think she speculates a lot in her head. But I would think there can't be any way that Dylan's not thinking, wait, I need to get in the way of this, and if I can't do it through talking, I need to take the support that's been thrown my way.
Well, we'll get into it more later, but it's where Elaine's story starts to become annoying because she starts to become a very Egwene-like. So we'll see some of that. We get a little bit of it here, but let's stick with where it's good. Is I like he's touched on it before, and we saw it most prominently when Birgitte got sloshed with Matt. And Elaine felt the effects much more prominently than she should have. And the supposition was, well, maybe this is what happens when a woman bonds another woman, because of the similarity there. That bond is much closer than it should be, than it is with a typical Aes Sedai and Warder relationship. And she's getting it here too. And I like that she recognizes it, and that she has to work to rein it in, because she's trying to maintain her cool. She's trying to play politics, and she doesn't want to give in to what I assume Birgitte wants to do, which is just literally grab people and throw them out the window. And she can't do that.
Well, but it talks about that they actually feed on each other. So
Yes.
Birgitte may not want to, but then she starts to kind of want to, and it starts to
Just this hard negative feedback loop.
check your video while you're talking for a second, because on my screen you're coming a little bit behind.
That's weird.
Talk.
Yeah, you kind of went a little herky jerky there for a second, but it looks okay now.
Okay, cool.
Okay,
All right.
so
as long as this sounds good, because we're experimenting with a lot of things for those in the audience.
Yep.
Bear with us. As long as it sounds good, hopefully we can kind of fine tune this.
But so where was I? Oh yes, so we'll get more into the army thing, I think, and Dylan when that starts to bear fruit a little more.
What I don't understand is,
so she's talking about the army.
so she's talking about the army, and it's going to take so long to train them, and they're getting the numbers, but it's so long to train them, so they need to hire the mercenaries, law and order.
You don't need to be
able to use a horse, a sword from horseback to be a police force.
They could
be using like as an assignment in their training, as just
being a presence in
the street. You don't have to have this other force come in. So there's two kinds of training, and you can have it like in rotation going through. So she could have solved this way, but
that would make for a lot
less pages.
Yep.
Then we get the sea folk coming in.
And then we get the sea folk coming in.
Okay, so this is a spot where not only does Jordan throw the Aes Sedai under the bus, as we've talked about, where they just become kind of incompetent, but Elaine should know better too. The deal was they should be teachers, and there's no point in this whole storyline with the Windfinders is someone saying, no, we agreed to be teachers, not slaves.
Yeah, I don't care what your idea of what a teacher pupil relationship is, and I don't care that normally you treat shore bound teachers as like bilge pumps. Yeah, no, that's not who we are.
When I think of teacher, especially with like a religious sect, not sect, religious sect, like we would call the Aes Sedai, I'm thinking of nuns wrapping your knuckles with the freaking ruler, you know? At no point did anybody say, no, look, I'm a teacher here. I'm going to teach you what you need to know, but we're going to do it this way. And that is of the set just gets
Yeah, at some point they should. No, our definition, our understanding of what a teacher is this, and we are the teachers, so we're going to do it. If you have a problem with that, then I guess we need to renegotiate the bargain. That would have been leverage instead of just kind of floundering around like she's doing here. And we'll get
that,
into that,
and I agreed the tower would do this, but I'm not the person in the tower that can.
Mhm.
And so until we get in front of that person, then this is not an issue.
That as well.
Yeah.
I feel like she does a much better job of dealing with them later, and then I love the way Brigitte deals with them even later than that, but we'll get there when we get there. And I'm wondering if Jordan's thinking was that the sea folk are still very exotic, they're very alien. So and I kind of get that in the way he introduces them, the way they come in, you know, the way he focuses on not just the way they're dressed, but their perfume, the way they smell, and the way they're acting. Is I'm wondering if his internal logic was they don't know how to deal with them because they're so unbalanced by the way they present themselves and by the way they act. You know, an analogy that I think I may have used before is I have learned and forgotten passable elementary Spanish twice in my life because it's a Western European language, so it is analogous enough to English that if you focus on it and if you practice it, it's not that difficult to, you know, pick up the basics so you can at least get around in, you know, in South Texas or you know, whatever. Not so Japanese. I've actually been to Japan, which is as Texarkana as South Texas is, it's still in America. But I've actually been to Japan to a language school, and I couldn't even come close to the level I was with Spanish because the basis of the language is that different from anything you're used to, you know, in a Western European language. The way it developed, the assumptions they have, the idioms they have, the grammatical structure they have. It's just so foreign that your brain has a hard time, at least mine had a hard time, had a hard time seeing it as anything other than alien. We'll deal with the Windfinders more, the Sea Folk more, as they're going to be more, continue to be annoying.
There was one when she made the second deal, you know, and she kissed her fingers and did the whole thing, and it was like, but then she had that smile like, I just got one on you. No, that's not how deals work. You know, you're coming to the table and you're putting your offer out and you're getting something in return. Yeah, you may banter words and stuff, but you can't just have this thing like, aha, I got you. This thing you don't know what you did. We're going to cash in on. I don't know. You would think at some point, some civilization, whether it be the country of Tenchiko or I guess the Domani would be the ones who are the better deal makers. Would be like, no, hell no, we're not going to stick to that. You just did a deal of that faith. You're not getting that thing. And by the way, if you ever come back, it's double the price. And
you want to
yeah,
say,
you want to say, oh, they're the greatest deal makers or whatever, but no, that's actually crooked.
and something
And
would have come
something would
along
have come
that said,
along
no,
that said, no, we're going to
get in the
to
way
get
of
in the
that.
way of that.
Someone
Someone would have had the
at
upper
some
hand at
point.
some point.
Yeah. It, uh, so then Taim shows up.
The most human moments you get with this guy.
I like the interaction. I like the banter. And I like that after they leave, Elaine gets it that, well, first, before we get to her getting naked, I think, to your point, the way she handles him is such a stark contrast with what just happened with the Windfinders, what just happened with the Sea Folk, because she's very self-confident, she's very cagey, and she's very flexible, so that ultimately she can still get what she wants despite all the seeming disadvantages she has. She's still able to come to a deal that benefits her and helps her. And again, in a way that is seemingly shouldn't have happened, because he holds all the cards. And that's certainly how he's acting when he's there, is, I hold all the cards. What are you going to do to me? And she's able to find a pressure point, you know, through her mental and political skill. And and with what we just saw with the Sea Folk, it's once again makes you go, why is it like this? I don't understand.
Because he's a man.
Well, we'll get to that at the end of the prologue, actually.
Yeah, no, you do see a difference between how these young women, or even the women in general, deal with each other, because they're trying to maneuver, they're trying to do all this. But when a guy comes in, they're just like, no, you're not going to subjugate me.
That's a good point, because even though they are at odds and their relationship is contentious,
They all came together when this precarious situation showed up, and a man
because
was
the
there.
difference is, while the relationship is contentious, I don't think either party, or any of the parties, whether it's with Elaine and Dylan earlier, or with Elaine and the Sea Folk when they come in, they don't see each other as adversaries. When Taim comes in, it's us versus them. There is a, with us or against us line there, that I think it is why it transpires the way it does. And then it's naked time. I'm
Had all.
Yep.
This stuff without changing the story.
Yep. I am mildly annoyed at the little tease he gives us here. Where is it? Let's see. Why is it telling me there's only 10 minutes of meeting time remaining?
Under your
Yes, we
name.
are. That's problematic.
And I
have the membership.
And I do not. Well, let's see where we can get. All right. So the little tease here he gets when Elaine realizes, oh, you did that on purpose to test my resolve. What did you do to Avienda? And it's for her to tell if she wants to. And I'm like, what did you do? Damn it, Jordan. Why are you like this? Because I'm wondering, what could they have done that would have tested her resolve
Well,
here?
yeah, this he started way early though. This is the mice and the figs. You just throw something out there, and your imagination can make it the worst. We have several occasions of Elaine expressing her cursory language in here, the
Mother's milk in a cup.
Mother's milk in a cup. Filthy pig kisser.
Yeah. And then we get to the slap fight.
Yeah, so this was fun.
Yeah, so this was fun. I almost kind of just breezed over this, and then I'm glad I decided to go ahead and read it through because
How cool he made this.
he made a ceremony.
Mhm.
Because it
Because
could
it could have been something pretty stupid,
but
but he made it into something that was
I use the word interesting.
I use the word interesting. What do you like about him?
What do you admire?
What do you admire?
What do you hate?
What do you hate?
Yeah.
How are they
Yeah.
childish?
And now
slap her.
Not just the interesting, but then the insight, because every question has a deeper point, and you get that with with the wise ones declarations after the fact of I mean, the slapping is the most stark one of, yeah, okay, let that be the last time that ever happens.
Mhm.
You know what it's like to feel that done to you, and to feel the doing of it to you, this person who is you are proclaiming as your sister. So both the giving and receiving are going to suck there. So remember that, moving forward, it is definitely a very interesting way to start off a relationship. And what's extra interesting to me is because this is something that's like akin to a marriage ceremony.
Mhm.
And so to them, this is what's important in a marriage ceremony, which is an interesting contrast with the one actual marriage ceremony that we've seen, which also involves fisticuffs.
And we also get a little bit of a kind of an Easter egg here with when was Elaine I need with the menagerie? Was that book 5? Book 6?
That was book 5. Yeah.
Okay, so
Book 5. Okay, so Nynaeve pestering Elaine over her eating candy tower, cancer fitting.
And then we get out the end where Elaine
Elaine
double
doubles
with both hands like a child
in
your mother's eye. She keeps on.
She will be as fat as a pig before she grows old.
So now we've actually got the
second voice saying this.
Yeah.
Which each on their own was funny, but if you put them together,
it makes me double laugh. Gobbles, taste now and then is all she took.
Now and
then fat.
Yeah, I like the device here. Just adds extra depth to it because we're getting Elaine's commentary for all of this. But we get her commentary of like her, indignation at what Aviendha says. But then, then comes the wise one's wisdom, and now she has to process that as well. Yeah, I don't think we shouldn't skip over, because the amusing bits are the gobbling of sweets and slapping in the face, but then also the a big part of Peterson and Douglas Murray, what they were talking about and what they've often talked about separately on their own, is the idea of gratitude. And so it shouldn't be overlooked. It is also important that it's not just the what don't you like about, what annoys you, it's not just let's get the pet peeves out of the way so that they don't, fester and ruin our relationship. It's also important to vocalize, and Elaine's like both she's shocked to hear Aviendha vocalize these things. She thinks that about me, and considering what they've been through, it shouldn't necessarily be a shock, but you know, much like with Sain and the shock of, yes, I'm Black Ajah, it matters when you hear it out loud.
I do like the description here because I'm a pervert. When Amos gets naked and she slaps her belly, I have borne children, I have given suck. She said, cupping breasts
That looked
as if she had nothing of the kind. Like, oof, why can't we have this scene in the show?
Well, actually, that answers your question previously, because I don't remember how we got on this. I think it was the last episode we did about the, just because your face is ageless, what does it do? What are the physical effects on the body? Well, apparently those stay pretty youthful and ageless as well.
Well, but the thing is, though, even if you're young, if you have children and you
Mhm.
breastfeed, it still drop just a little
Mhm.
bit. You know, it's not even just an age thing.
Yep.
So she found that new plastic surgery. She got those siliconies.
All right. Well, you have any more thoughts here before we
Just
break
that
this into?
it's basically, I think it's very, it's almost like they're born twins, right? So they're almost the same DNA now, right? And this is something I can speak to from experience because I'm married to a twin. And when you're married to a twin, you're always second. So, let's not mince words here. You're always second. So yeah, I could see how this becomes like kind of with this ritual, it makes the whole system make more sense
because
because
there's
now
a bond
there's a
here
bond here that's greater than the jealousy
That's a good
or
point.
any of those other,
especially
especially since the last question ended with jealousy
Yeah, that's a good point.
on both of their parts.
And we, to your point, we saw this system. We first saw this in book 4
Mhm.
with well, I think they may have, no, in book 4, because I think the first time we start to get this is with Gaul and Vane and Chiad, of if he's gonna get one, he has to get both, because they won't be separated because they're first sisters.
Well, and now when you see this whole ritual take place, one of the first things I did mentally was I went back to everybody's first sisters. Moline and whoever Bale's other wife is, Bane and Shade, and all, they've all been through this already.
Mhm.
So
All right. Well, then we get to the last part of, and there's some interesting
go ahead
things
and
here.
pause here because we're about to run out of
Yep.
your time.
And so just hit the stop,
And so just hit the stop button,
but don't X out of
but
it.
don't X out of anything else.
Sure. All right. So the next bit, I forgot there are 2 bits left in the prologue. I like this part for the very end. So I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Well, you brought this up. You said we're going to get to that, and now we're at that when we talked about the bond
Mhm.
and how it's so much different with the men bonding the women. It almost becomes a subjugative thing. I'm wondering if there's an underlying tone of patriarchy kind of thing here. If men have the power, they will use it. But then we get inklings of Logain doesn't really use it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is, so that's the part that makes me laugh, and what I like. Where is it? Here at the end. Da, 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 da. Where is it? All right, so when okay, here we are. Okay, there we go. Accidentally wiggled your thingy there. When so Tovine and Gabrielle are talking, and it's hinted at, I think it's explicitly said somewhere, it may be when Alvier and Elida are talking in one of the earlier books, that the order that Logain burned that would have gotten them in so much trouble is they were all to be stilled and hung on the spot.
Mhm.
They were not to bring any of them back to the White Tower, which would have made made people who already didn't like them not like them. So I think that's a very purposeful juxtaposition of this is what they were about to do to these people, these men, and Toving can't fathom why why that Logain would treat them well. I don't know why Toving. He isn't a villain, no more than most men. It could be as simple as that. Or it could be that this bond is like the water bond in more ways than we know. Maybe he just did not want to experience the two of us being executed. The idea that he's not a villain, or at least no more than most men. And of course, Tovane the Red has trouble grasping that idea.
Mhm.
And this was also the idea of that I was referencing earlier. And we've talked about a lot before when it comes to the gender politics of the world, is the idea of men and women as adversaries instead of complementary, instead of even in an you can have a healthy adversarial relationship even, and they don't have that. They're not co-competitors on the same field.
Mhm.
They're enemies. It's us versus them. And that was, I can't remember the context that I brought this up last time, that the difference between Reds and other Aes Sedai, that none of the all of the Aes Sedai that we meet would fit under the modern rubric of the strong female character, but all of the strong female characters of modern media are written as Reds. It's not enough to just be self-confident. You also must despise the patriarchy proactively. And that's kind of the conversation we're getting here between Tovine and Gabrielle.
I can't put it because it's on my phone. I put it on the screen if that'll show up. Remember when I sent you this many months
I
ago?
can't see it. It's too much glare there.
Oh, we confuse sexual conflict with power
Mm,
struggle.
that's a good point.
That was one of the random thoughts I just had, just listening and studying stuff. I think I was in the midst of
the evolution of
the
desire
evolution of desire
at that. But yeah,
at that. But yeah, we do confuse
the conflict
the
between the
conflict
sexes
between the
with
sexes
power
with
struggle
a
sometimes.
power struggle sometimes, when realistically it should be
An interwoven
interwoven
experience,
mingling
which I think
experience,
is one
which
of the
I think is
themes of
one
the
of the
books,
themes of the books,
all the way
all
through.
the way through.
And then we get
And
from
then we get
Gabrielle's
from Gabrielle's
perspective,
perspective, where she's like, "All women feel this way."
I mean,
I mean,
have we been
had we been denied this because we have this power? Has this thing been just like
out of our reach
out of
until
our
now
reach
I've
until
experienced this
now I've
thing
experienced
that
this thing that
maybe we should all be
maybe we should
experiencing
all
and
be
actually
experiencing, and actually we
not be
probably
losing numbers
not be
because we
losing
would
Mhm.
numbers
be breeding.
because we would be breeding. Uh,
And
and we just saw from this actually, I hate to say there's no accidents, but we just got Camus talking about bearing children. When the Aes Sedai is like, no, we can't do that. We must be separate. We are above everything. And that's probably why we get the great numbers amongst the wise ones and amongst the ideal, amongst the kin, amongst everything not Aes Sedai.
Mhm. And well, in the line I was looking for that amused me so much was was Gabrielle responding to Tovine of it took me 2 days to decide I should give in to his animal lust, as you say, and 4 days for me to convince him to do it. So not exactly the enemy that you have in your mind there,
Now I'm
Misread.
wondering how attractive
There's probably a
Really?
description.
Of course, he's kind of the sailor on the ship and the submarine. There's not. Oh gosh. Oh, should I throw Chuck under the bus and do something that gets us canceled?
Yes.
Chuck either I think I can't remember if he said he did it or someone else did it. I think he said someone else did it when they got back from Korea as a unit. Apparently somebody got up and said, "Okay, all of you are unattractive again," surely, as they got back, because there were so few females with all the soldiers that everything went. Oh.
Yep. Yeah. Imagine that. All right.
In the name.
Other than that, the I like the glimpse into Logain here. We got a little bit of it, but it was when he was gentled, so he wasn't really himself for much of it. But it is. I mean, it's obvious that there are at least two major factions here: Logain versus Taim, and the Aes Sedai are talking about that and talking about exploiting it, but it's also not just that they're both former self-proclaimed dragons, but they're very different people. And it's again showing, not telling, that Jordan's not telling you that Logain's one of the good guys. He's showing you that he is, or at least could be.
Well, and you get a little glimpse of that when in the Swan storyline, because he actually saves them at one point. With a sling or something, and it's just he's still trying to do the things. He was a very young man that realized he had this very extreme power. And then how can you not think, well, shoot, there's this prophecy out there, and I have this thing that almost nobody else has. I mean, you can even say the same for Taim. It's just where do you go from there? And once that fell on its head, Taim kept going for power, and he said, "Wait a minute, I have to take a step back. I'm not that thing." Good timing, because it's not in a time when there wasn't real dragon.
Yeah.
Good timing on that part. But Taim's in the same time. Taim is saying, "Well, I'm not that, but I'm going to be better." Where Logain is, "I'm not that, but I still have this power." And so he's trying to do the right thing. It's just like a really strong man. A really strong man can like beat up people or protect people. And
on that note, I like the last sentence here. Before Logain and Taim and the rest were destroyed, they would help Toveen Gazelle bring down Elida.
No, she's not bitter at all.
Yeah. Well, I believe she was one of the ones that was pulled out of retirement. That was because she got caught up in the vileness after the Iowa War, I believe. So I think she was put into retirement. I don't believe she's a black. I don't think we've gotten any hint of that, and I'm not going to look it up right now, but I don't think we've gotten any hint of that. And from what little we have been told about that time, it wasn't all black. That the black used the reds to execute this plan.
Yeah. Which realistically, that note that was destroyed, that could be used as evidence of the violence. Because so Swan spread the story that became the Reds hunting down Manuka Channel and executing them on the spot. That was incorrect. It was actually the vileness that she's talking about. But this letter from Elida lends credence to the Swan story.
No, the Swan story was that the Reds were propping up false dragons because it was more prestigious to bring down a false dragon than just some random dude who could channel. And we're never exactly told if that's 100% true. But it's, well, we know it's not 100% true, but we're not told how close to the mark she may have knowingly or unknowingly been because of the way the Reds react to it.
Yeah, so this is in a at how many different readings we've done in our lifetime, but I always, and this might be a slight bias on my part where I missed something, but I always put the Owen story with the Swan story. And Owen was the one that they gentled on the spot and left there. So I always kind of put those together because they came together in the storyline so much.
Yeah.
Which the Owen story was closer to the vileness, even though it wasn't, or they would have killed him. But
Yeah. I think that, and I don't know if this was ever confirmed, but I think the reason the Reds are so closed mouthed about the allegations is because that, well, we can't exactly, if we go into too much detail denying these, we may accidentally bring to the surface things that we need to keep hidden.
yeah.
So we're just not going to say anything.
Well, except we get that little bit from Pavaro where she's completely insulted by everything to go with that. And she's a very honest person in this whole storyline. So
yeah, but I think that's her personal bias showing through, because she is so principled. And we saw that here at the beginning of this prologue. She is so personally principled that she takes offense at the negative stereotypes of the Reds, but is incapable of seeing that there's a reason those exist. Even when she has suffered for it. Because remember, one of the first things we learn about her is that she was disciplined, and you can imagine how much fun that must be with the Reds. She was disciplined by her agent for suggesting that Reds should take orders. So she knows what the Reds are like. She knows that those stereotypes are there for a reason. You know, she intellectually has to know she's the outlier, but I don't think she can fully embrace the idea because now we're going to get canceled again. As Peterson and Murray were talking about, that there are going to be people with whom you can never have the conversation of the craziness that's going on in our modern society, because they did something to their own children that they can never recognize as being even a little bit bad, because they did it to their own children. Well, that's a very normal part of human nature, and that's where Pavar is.
I've probably brought this up like 100 times in this podcast, is when someone asks me about a product that's on the market, my first question now is, have you already bought it? Because if they've already bought it, they're going to defend their purchase no matter what the facts are. And so, you know, when they say, oh yeah, I already have, then I'm like, all right, well, you give me a review. That's my answer.
Do it first so long, give
Give me a review.
and if they haven't, then I give my honest opinion. So it's that buy-in. It's a cult. That's a cult sport, right? They get you to buy in a little bit at a time until you bought it enough that they can throw the ridiculous at you. You know, Scientology doesn't tell you about Zargon or whatever his name is in space until you've already invested thousands of dollars.
There's a really good episode of Mike Rowe's podcast from a couple of months ago now, I think, with a guy named Tony Ortega, who's an investigative journalist who's been writing about Scientology for a long time. And that was one of the first things he said is, you sit down with any of the major religions, you know, and within 10 minutes, if not 5, someone can explain to you what it's all about. No, it's Scientology. They purposely hide it. You cannot explain to somebody what it is and have it make even the littlest bit of sense.
One thing about this section is something that I got on this latest reread that I get in all of the others, and this is the trope of the Browns. The Browns being the absent-minded professors, right? Well, we all love Varen. Everybody loves Varen, and she's
the
the
exception to the rule.
She's not the spacey Eve Brown,
Mhm.
right?
Well, we get right
We
here
get right
That's a good
here
point.
that Jordan keeps hinting
that the
that the
Browns
Browns are more
than the sum of their
than the
parts.
sum of their parts.
And
And
I'm a scientist
I'm a
myself,
scientist
so
myself,
I've
so
done
I
research. I'm
have
a
done
published author.
research.
You
I'm a
know, all these
published
things.
author, and you know all these things.
One of the strengths
One
of
of the strengths
good
of
scientific
good
mindset
scientific
is
mindset
observation skills,
is
which
observation
is
skills,
the antithesis,
which is the
or
antithesis,
the opposite
or the
of
opposite
being spacey and not
of
aware of your
being
surroundings.
spacey and not aware of
I
your
was
surroundings.
gonna bring this up, that I got sidetracked, and it's an even better place for it now, which was at the bottom of page 70. This is Gabrielle. She laughed quietly amused. Your face, Tovine. Did you think I've spent all my time thinking about tangling my fingers in Loghain's hair? After she's just gone through this, hard, cold analysis of the situation, and Tovine's just like, huh? Because
Yeah.
you're the space cadet who is given into Loghain's animal lusts. No, I'm also, a probably 70-year-old woman who has been uh, working in the highest levels of power and knowledge in the world for decades.
And I still have a 30-year-old body. As we've just been talking
That
about.
too.
But also, I mean, the first step in the scientific process is observe. Observe, find a pattern, and then speculate and make a hypothesis.
Mhm.
That's exactly how science works. The first step is observation. The absent-minded professor is kind of a trope.
In
In
fact,
fact, those who
can't
can't do
teach,
teach,
right?
right?
So
So the absent-minded professor is probably the person who wasn't a good
scientist.
scientist.
That's
That's not true, because actually the way the
Yeah.
industry works, unfortunately, is academia and research go together. But it's I think Jordan just subtly put that in there, and I didn't know it until I did this as someone who's done work
in that
in that
profession.
profession.
So he
And
throws it
he
in
throws
there
it
a
into
lot,
the lab,
but it's like
it's like
this under the radar thing.
thing.
And I think that's what makes Varen even so much
Even so
more
much.
Mhm. Yeah. All right. So enough.
But I like Galeen. I mean, she's hanging around. We can go have a drink or something together.
All right. And now the last section. I'm curious your thoughts here of Rand in Karheen.
Oh, yeah.
And you get some fun men stuff as well, because they're in Karheen. One, so Rand can give, signed and sealed orders to Dobrain, and also check in on things.
And Dover being one of the best small bit characters.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Again, and this really showing,
Realistically, he's the only person he can trust in Karheen.
I hadn't thought of it in these terms before, but really what he is quickly becoming here, because of Rand's shift away from the Aiel, is he's Rand's new Rourke. He's filling that role with the Wetlanders. And I hadn't really thought of it in that way before, but then I was thinking about the way he reacts to Min's banter and her teasing of Rand, and he's kind of, grandfatherly or older uncle, maybe kind of, chuckling at the kids. Whereas Idrian, the academy headmistress lady, she's kind of scandalized at the way Min talks to Rand, the Dragon Reborn. And Dobrain he's too, Karheenan to laugh out loud, but he, smiles, which, says all he needs to say. So he does kind of have that elder statesman, male role model kind of thing that Rand continues to need and then continues to push away.
He's a little bit parallel to. He's kind of like Ryan Lake. So he's like the Karheen version of him. We just don't get great general.
Yeah.
But as far as how he deals with people and he interacts. He's as honest of a Cartoon as you can get. And then he does have that uncle
kind of
feel to him.
feel to
Mhm.
him, you know.
Something
About the spot that I. One of the things, and this came up in the Logain part of this too, is
I wanted to
speculate a little bit about
Flynn
Narishma
Will
being
on the
on the
Trader's
Trader's Tree.
Yes, 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 yes.
Because Rand
knows they're still in Karheen,
and he
is skeptical about them.
But at the same time, it's well known they're there. But if they're in the Trader's Tree and they're well known they're there, what's the interplay there?
And why is Rand,
does
does Rand not know they're on the
Trader's
Trader's
Tree?
Tree?
That was always my assumption, is that Tane put them there.
But at the same time,
undermine
this
Rand.
chapter or this section here makes me think that he knows because he's also wary of them.
I think it's going to come up later. I think it may be Knife of Dreams. So
we'll say that's for spoiler, or when it comes up.
Minor spoiler, or when it comes out. It's a minor enough spoiler. I'll just say I'm pretty sure in a couple of books there's a scene where Rand is mad and Taim is, it was a mistake, my bad, and he plays it off. So, but even before that point, my assumption was always that Taim put those names on there to undermine Rand. These guys are his, they aren't my lackeys, so let me take these guys out. Because and the assumption is like in the conversation there with Logain is the younger guy saying that doesn't make any sense. There's what was it, Rokiade and the other guy, they were Taim's guys, they were his lackeys. So my assumption was always
the intermediary. There's Forsaken.
Exactly. So my assumption was always they were acting at the behest of, or at least with the knowledge of Taim, and he's going to cover for them. So they're not in any real danger.
See, I don't think so. And this is spoiler territory, so I don't have a place to take notes. This is spoiler territory because we don't know who actually Dashiva is at this point. But let's talk about that more in spoilers. Yeah, because we got this last section, and then we'll do spoilers.
The other thing about this section that I like, and I know this is somewhat controversial because I know not everyone does, but I like the teasings of an industrial revolution here. That's about to start.
Well,
it's also a teasing of a time that maybe in the future is without the power. Because we can actually assume we'll go all the way back out of the world.
It was a well
of power. That there is actually a limit to this, and we might be reaching that limit
at some point.
Well, yeah, and that's why it's coming about the way it is, though. To me, it makes perfect sense because there's already a limit within the world, just in that the use of the power in this world is so insular. Because in the Western world here, Randland, it's all kept within the tower, and the other bits like the kin, they're outside of it. They keep quiet and they keep to themselves. And the same with the Aiel, they keep to themselves. Windfinders as well, and men are just hunted down. And then over on the other side in the Sanshin, they're all enslaved, and the men are immediately killed. So it makes sense that without access to the power, normal people are going to try and find an edge. And with the rise of chaos and violence and danger, that the necessity is there pushing for that, mother of invention. And so you're going to, now that you have the opportunity here with Rand giving people the opportunity, they're going to jump at it. And you're going to see, because you don't have, we have heard from literally the first book that the Age of Legends was an age of legends. It was an age of wonders. because men and women work together. That was all of the surviving accounts tell us that the greatest works were done by men and women linked together, and they haven't been able to do that for 3,000 years. So now, well, here's another way of pushing that forward.
Well, and there's so
many kind of,
nuggets,
I guess, nuggets that are like implying that maybe the first age
Mhm.
is human beings
in the
in the real world,
and then the Age
and
of
then
Legends
legends
happened, which
happen.
we're talking 3,000
Talking
years. I
3,000
mean,
years.
that's a huge
That's a
time.
huge time.
We're only 2,000 years
2,000
from
years
AD,
AD,
right?
right?
So
Right.
3,000
So
years
3,000 years
since the Age of Legends, and then
since the Age of
probably
Legends, and then
3,000 years. Three
probably
is the number
3,000
here
years.
because
3 is
the
the
three
number here
ages,
because the 3 ages
rotating
around the wheel,
and
and
we might be
we
going
might be
back
going
into that
back into
first
that
age
first
again,
age again,
where there is
where
no
there is no
power.
power.
And then
And then the power reemerges, and we get another Age of
and
Legends,
then we
and
have
then
another
we have another
war,
war,
and then we
and
have
then we have
chaos.
and
And
basically the
war
war
brings us
brings us
back
back
to
to
what people would
people
call
would call
maybe a dark age. They
age.
lived
They
in the
lived
Age
in
of
the Age of
Legends,
Legends, you know.
So
So
it's the
it's the
circular
circular
process.
process. He just keeps
Reiterating that,
reiterating that,
and there
and
is
there
no
is no
end.
end.
We
We
see it
see it
in
in
the
the
portal
portal
stones.
stones.
There is
There
no
is no
end.
end.
It's
It's
over
over
and
and
over
over
and
and
over and
over
over.
and
I win
over. I
again,
win
win
again,
again,
win
win
again,
again,
win
win
again,
again.
win again.
So,
So
uh,
let's see.
men is
Horsemen is
cool.
cool.
Yeah, it's really. I'm trying to think
I'm
if
trying to
it's
think if it's
fortunate
fortunate
or
or
unfortunate that we
unfortunate
get
that we
so
get
few
so few
men
men
points of
on
view,
Mhm.
because
because
maybe it would take, maybe we
maybe
would
we
be
would be
as
as
annoyed
annoyed
about
about
her as we
her
are
as
about
we are about
Elaine and
Elaine
Egwene
and
and
Yeah.
Egwene and all of those
if we got more
if
points of
we got
view.
more points of view.
But yeah, she's
But
always
yeah,
just
she's
there with
always
the
just
right
there with
things.
the right thing.
I don't know that we would. So this is. I'm trying to think of how to phrase this. The reason Min is so consistently likable is because she's so consistent from the first time we see her. But that's not to say she doesn't change. She does change. She does have an arc. She does, go through some stuff. I mean, here she's gone from barmaid in a mining town to now she's digging through esoteric tomes on obscure philosophy from in Herod Fell's room, the guy who was so far out there and ahead of everybody else that no one at this academy could understand him, and here she is, she's digging through it, like, and getting all of these books that she's going to make Rand carry because women be women wherever you are. So
Except that no, he stood his ground here. She carried those.
oh, that's right. That's right.
she carried them.
No, it was when she said the horses better be there or you're gonna have to be fitted for a pack saddle. Yeah. So she does go through an arc, she does go through changes, but at her core, she's still who she was when we first met her. And you get that with the few point of view scenes we do have. And I mean, I think that's Scott's big gripe about Egwene is that we see her point of view, we see in her mind, and then later on it seems like she's not acting the same way. She's not acting on those things that she had determined before.
What I like about Men, one of the things I like about her is something I've griped about in our social episodes, is she's a young woman who doesn't demand respect beyond her years. She earns respect every step she takes. She never has told Rand, do this because I know better, or
That's a good point.
she has never tried to lord over everybody else. She has always tried to earn her place, whether it's with her viewings or with just her prowess or her knowledge. And that was what made her my favorite female.
Not that she won't say that's a terrible idea, dummy.
Yeah.
But then she says, because,
Mhm.
and she tells you why. She doesn't just say, don't do that. She says, hey, woolhead, XYZ, that's something I hadn't really thought of before in context with her, but
Well, and when we look at the different storylines, when we look at some of the guys, Perrin starts to become annoying because he becomes singularly focused, which we get in the next couple chapters here. He's singularly focused, and it's at the detriment of everybody else to a large degree. So we get a very backwards working of his character development because he was trying to help everyone for so many of these books, for 8 of the 9 books, and we're now in book 9.
And
Now only he thinks about himself.
Mhm.
Oh no,
No, we're supposed to think about Faio.
No,
No, he's thinking about himself
because
because
his
his feelings
for
for
Faio
Faio that are the thing. Matt
keeps
keeps
kind of on this path
of
I'm just
I'm just trying to do the right thing no matter where I'm at.
So
That's why he becomes more and more likable.
Yeah.
Rand
was
was like that in the
first
first like 5
books.
books.
He
He was like, I'm just trying to do the right thing. I'm just trying to do the right thing. I keep getting thrust in these positions.
And then
Then he starts to get annoying because now he's like, I'm the Lord.
Mhm.
And things have to go this way.
I am the law.
I am the law. Right? Min is more like a Matt character. She's just trying to do the right thing. She's trying to nudge her way forward. She's trying to make her way through. She's trying to survive. She's a barmaid. She's trying to survive, get to the next paycheck, and maybe get a little further along the way. She just happens to be in love with the most powerful man in the world.
It happens.
Right? It happens, right?
Yeah.
Which is really gonna suck her in several books.
So wrapping up the prologue here, if you don't have any other thoughts, one of the other reasons I liked this book and continue to is just remembering the shock of Jordan through Rand actually just telling us straight out what's going on. No, so this is one of the few instances where he does tell instead of show, because we see Min going through, you went to Rudine and you did this, and you went to Tyr and you did this. So Jordan didn't show us that. He just tells us about it through Min's point of view, and then just flat out says, I'm gonna cleanse the male half of the source. So it's like, oh wow, we know what this book's about. Huh.
Yeah, we kind of know how it's going to finish, except we don't know how it's going to finish. We know how it's going to finish because we're on a reread, but
it is refreshingly blunt and straightforward.
It's refreshingly blunt and straightforward, but it doesn't take away from how it happens.
It doesn't, and it doesn't take away from this moment, because it works, because here he is in a private moment with someone he not only loves but trusts implicitly. And so yeah, it makes sense that for once he would actually be direct and open. This would be the time for it.
So we had thought about going to chapter 1 and 2, but I think we'll cut it here.
Yeah,
let's go into spoilers.
Yeah, let's try and save the next the Perrin chapters for next time, where we will hopefully get all the way through them.
We can just do all
that whole chunk, because the sooner we get through the Perrin stuff, the better.
Well, who knows? Maybe we'll find nuggets of something that's interesting in there that we didn't think of before.
Well, there is.
We have done that with Nynaeve. We did that.
Yeah, that's true.
We weren't as big a fans as Nynaeve.
We weren't as big a fans as Nynaeve, but we were also teenage boys and authoritarian.
Even when they have a nice rat, which apparently Nynaeve does.
Damn it. Amazon. You had a chance. You had one chance.
You blew it.
Now I'm curious what
what the actress.
I don't know, but there are multiple.
She's like in thick ass clothes every episode.
And there are multiple times where
she doesn't even go into the ring.
The tightness of Nynaeve's bust is mentioned, like when she's trying to find dresses and stuff. Like,
Okay, what did I say?
I don't know. No, wasn't it something about Logain? Mm.
So,
I know my thing was about Taim, but I just went ahead and said it because it's a small thing, and I'm mostly sure it happens in Knife of Dreams, where he feigns ignorance that that the others were on there. Which I gotta say, how do you accidentally put someone's name on a traitor list? A list that is well known to be kill on sight and bring their head back here. The if we are gonna ramble about spoilers, go away. If you're reading this for the first time, I'm curious if you're watching one of the two people that actually watch these videos. If this is your first time, comment, because I'm genuinely curious, because I know we had some.
I'm gonna get the comments up. So
That's a good point. So we did have some people comment on our the TV series episodes we did that, you know, I was going to read it, and then this came out, and I was gonna. So now this makes me want to read it more, etc. and so forth. Just that. Shad's thumbnail there on his season 2 trailer review. He's got a big red circle around Rand with an arrow pointing to him saying main character, because he's hiding in the back of the.
Oh, there's 8 comments too.
Okay, let's pull these up and then see if you can remember what the heck you're talking about.
All 8 here.
Okay, dogs.
It's not all 8.
this way. No sound.
Come on. Okay, sort by. Sorry for the technical difficulties here. We are playing this by ear. Okay, so you should be able to just. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So I'm reading. I'm going to be over here.
Okay. What did we say about Snyder? I don't know. Despise the Snyder verse.
You brought up Snyder.
You brought up Snyder.
Oh, I think it was the I don't like him, but I respect him. I may have mentioned that because I appreciate what he's trying to. I appreciate what he's trying to do. I just never think he actually does it.
I'm going to go back
I'm
over
gonna
here.
go back over here so we don't have reverb on the mics.
Okay.
Read it out loud.
Read it.
All right. Actually, on because we're gonna talk about the series here. I will say though, as much as I did not like Man of Steel because I thought it was a horrible bastardization of the character of Superman, it wasn't completely out of the blue, because you've got like 80 years of Superman comics and then TV shows and cartoons and movies. So there actually was some source material that Snyder was pulling from for his vision of Man of Steel, you know, but it was just my beef with it was a very small sliver of the overall Superman lore, you know, but at least he was basing it on something, you know. To Scott's second comment here, another season of showing scenes that never occur in the books. Judkins thinks he's a better world creator than Jordan. Why did Amazon even bother to buy the rights if they were just going to go any direction they felt like? They could have created an original fantasy for free.
Because then you can't put that. So we get more views when I write out Wheel of Time than when I just put block. So they bought the rights so they can write out Wheel of Time, and somebody who's read these books say, "Oh, click."
Same reason they did Rings of Power, instead of actually using, even though the source material they bought was very limited, which was dumb in and of itself, but same reason, the clicks. Yeah.
You're flipping through Amazon, you go Wheel of Time, what's Wheel of Time? Because you read Wheel of Time.
And it's not entirely wrong. Man, I hope That's not coming through on the mic, you morons. Yeah. What was the name of that movie? Lockdown. Did you ever see that? It was a like a near future sci-fi. Guy Pearce is the hero, and he's gotta go rescue the president's daughter. It's basically like Escape from New York, except on a space station. So he's got to go rescue the president's daughter on a prison space station. It was a great, fun action movie that was new. It was a unique IP. Yeah, it was, Escape from New York meets Die Hard in space, but it was still a new idea. Didn't do very well because it's harder to sell a new idea. So they're not completely wrong. However, you can sell new ideas. It has been done. It just takes more work, and they're not willing to do that. Both just sheer laziness, lack of creativity, and the cost. The thinking on the studio side is, if I'm going to sink this much money, but to Scott's point, you wouldn't have sunk that much money. I don't know what they paid for the Wheel of Time rights, but they rather infamously paid $250 million for the Lord of the Rings rights, and they didn't even get all the rights. So that part of it is a little bit mind-boggling. Of what did you think your profit ratio was going to be here when you spent $250 million just to buy part of the rights to Lord of the Rings? And that doesn't even go into what you're going to have to shell out to actually make the show. So there is an element of, what are you thinking? And there's some penny wise, pound foolish in there. Yeah, so this is something I was going to bring up, and then I forgot because it is a little spoilery. I can't remember where this happens. It's in Perrin's story where he's talking to one of the Ashaman that's with him. So the story explains the Dark Tower bond is something akin to marriage. The women seem to develop romantic feelings from it, whereas almost all Aes Sedai bond men in purely pragmatic ways. Even Greens regard the warders as tools. There is an element of that, and it does make me wonder, though, because we just got a very interesting mechanical explanation for not exactly the warder bond, although we've seen that a little bit in other places, but the Aiel bond is different. We never actually see what it is, but we are told later on that one of the guys at the Black Tower figured out something like the warder bond for the men with wives. That's why they originally figured this out, because they wanted that connection so that your husband, your wife is okay when they have to travel off and be off to who knows where. So there is that element, and yeah, I don't know if I've often wondered if there is an element of that. Multiple participants. Okay.
This is actually
Ready.
Video thing here. Stockholm syndrome is captive or abusive situations when people develop positive feelings for their captor or abused over time. This condition applies to situations where there is child abuse, social abuse, relationship abuse, and captive. Maybe we should do an episode on this.
Yeah. I think we'll get a lot more into it later. When you get one of the I like the storyline. It just annoys me that the character is out of the blue, which is the Ashaman who has the talent for making gateways.
Yeah.
So and then with the with the red he's with, that Bond kind of gets explored more in that. So I'm not sure. I'm not entirely sure that it is just because of the Bond that happens the way it's happening. To Scott's point. Back to these. Okay, so next. Let's see. Lane mentions that they used a herbal birth control. Yeah. It's reputed that pre-Columbian American indigenous people had effective birth control. And I think I brought up the Egyptians who are supposed to have had effective birth control. We just there are no records of what that was. Kind of like Greek fire. We know that it existed, but nobody bothered to write down a recipe.
Napalm.
Yeah, nobody bothered to write down a recipe, so we're kind of guessing what it was.
Gasoline and styrofoam, by the way. That's napalm.
Yeah.
Oh, disclaimer.
Disclaimer.
I'm not donating the
You
use
don't
of
use this. I
the
just
recipe.
give a recipe.
Okay, so we just talked about this, but yes, nowadays it seems contemporary readers cannot understand, quote, all the greatest achievements were accomplished by men and women working together.
We just talked about that.
Yeah, he makes mention of it over and over. I like that he makes mention of it over and over, and then when you actually get to the point where it can happen, and people have a hard time like grasping the idea, and it's like, you know, it's a shock to even someone as iconoclastic as Cadsuan. She's still kind of looking at askance at what's the yellow's name that's with her that ends up bonding the old man, Flynn, because they share that kind of bond of healing. I don't remember. But you know, she gets it intellectually, but even she's kind of looking sideways at, I don't know. Got to keep an eye on this.
Well, except Rand and Nynaeve get it, which is why Nynaeve is so cool, because
The end of this
the end of this book
is
is
them
working together to
Yep.
do this giant
And
thing.
you can make a very compelling argument that this is the greatest of the greatest achievements. We don't even know what the Age of Legends ones were, but the importance of what Rand does here, just it can't be minimized. It's just, it can't be oversold. I don't know about this one. I'm not quite sure why Rand didn't still the Tower Aes Sedai. I suppose that's like the literary equivalent to Gandalf telling Frodo why Gollum was spared.
No, I get the question.
No, I get the question.
I don't know about the equivalency though, because
Because I think Rand understands that that would be the equivalent of killing them. And
we all know how Rand
we all know how Rand feels about killing women, right? So if
the
ones that were stilled because they you know, something exploded or whatever in the process.
It was the ones that were actively holding his shield.
Yeah. He's not so. That's whatever. But at the same time, if he was to sentence them to be stilled, that is like sentencing them to death.
Mm-hmm.
And I bet you
I bet you
that
they killed themselves,
it would be on
it would be on the list.
Oh, I'm sure they would.
Yeah. Why keep them all?
Yes.
So
They put them to work to try and actively keep them alive, and they didn't make those .sang because I think that it says somewhere in there that they figured that they've been punished enough. But you kind of get it, and we kind of skipped over it. I think it comes up in this book because all of the Domine that he frees in Path of Daggers, he sent to Camelin. So we're gonna see because it's in this book later that Elaine has to deal with them and figure out what to do with them. But it's he says there or in here that I've got enough problems with the tower as it is, so I don't want to add killing women who can channel to their list of reasons they hate me. So I think for him it's much more pragmatic, and the Gandalf Gollum analogy there is that was that was Tolkien through Gandalf making a point about mercy and redemption, I think. And for Rand, I think it was purely real politics.
It's real politics, but also for him, it's just I can't do this thing to women.
Yeah. I've come to the conclusion that Perrin and Thael are the slog. Their storyline almost comes to a complete halt. If you edit out their plot until Perrin completes the rescue, there really is no slog. And to me, that's the point there, the middle bit there about their storyline coming to a halt. But worse than that, and this is what we'll get into here when we start to get into his story is, and you kind of touched on it, that it's worse than a halt, it's regressive. You know, we're going backwards and treading over ground that we had already done in a very satisfying story arc between the two of them. And
this is the worst Perrin representation.
Yeah,
he looks like the singer from Passenger in Let It Go. He's very diminutive. He's kind of stupid looking. I don't know who the old man on the
I believe that's
supposed to
Grady.
be.
The old
Grady?
farmer
Okay.
man is probably
And I
that's
was
supposed
just
to be.
a Nora.
Yeah, I guess, and I assume that's supposed to be Gaul.
Yeah,
That's got to be Gaul. That's the only one that could be there. But
Yeah. That's a good point. The diminutive, wimpified Perrin there on the cover.
yeah, who's willing to sacrifice tens of thousands of people for his own personal thing.
Which is very un-Perrin, who was going back home to give himself up to be hanged, assuming that would keep everyone else safe, and then was, you know, talked out of it, or realized, you know, he only went on the path that he ended up eventually going on when he saw that, okay, that won't keep anyone safe. You know, and here he never really has that realization through the whole of this story that goes on way too long. All right, last comment here. Think what you missed about my comment regarding Egwene. Aes Sedai is Old Tongue for servant to all, but it's become everyone is servant to Aes Sedai. That's why I consider Egwene a failure. Yes and no.
That's why I consider all Aes Sedai a failure.
To the point that was kind of my epiphany last time is that
his point is which I just said. That's why I consider all Aes Sedai a failure.
She became
that was a failure.
But to a certain extent, and it's certainly by no means a perfect storyline, but to a certain extent, she had to be who she became in order to put the tower back together. I think the assumption, the inference you can make is that the iconoclast is who comes after Egwene has put things right. It's Cadsuane who is going to succeed her, and she's the true iconoclast, and now she has a cleaner slate to work off of because Egwene put everything back together and didn't just like put the pieces back together. She really reforged the tower anew by not just bringing both sides back together, but genuinely reconciling them and then purging all the bad elements thanks to Baron. All right, so that's the last of the comments there. Did you ever remember what the heck you were gonna?
No,
No, but I've got two, at least one thing. One fun thing with this reread, and I've probably talked about it in previous episodes. One of my favorite video games is RPGs is Dragon Age. There are so many real-time nuggets in Dragon Age that is unreal. And one of the ones that popped up in this prologue was Brigitti's last name, Hellion. In the third Dragon Age Inquisition, your last name is Trellian.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
But in the first Dragon Age, one of the antagonists and actually become somebody in your party is Loghain. And there's so many little nuggets that are in there that are Wheel of Time that punch forward, that is fun.
Do you know if that was on purpose? Was that a purposeful homage? Do you know?
It has to be. I mean, how common is a name as
The Loghain one is pretty obvious because I think
Yeah.
it's spelled the same.
It's spelled exactly the same.
Exactly the
Yeah.
same. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. So it's little things that I'm like, these guys read these books. And it's just, and of course this is Dragon Reborn, right? So you're kind of playing on the same thing. So
Jordan
built on all these other legends,
and
and
video game would be smart to build on his work as well.
Yeah.
And
And
again,
throw these little things in there that someone who's read all of these books would be like, yeah, I know that. You know.
All right. Well, then that is that for Winter's Heart, the beginning of Winter's Heart. Next time we should get through a big chunk because I think a lot of the stuff that's going to happen in those I think it's the first 4 chapters are all Perrin, and I don't know how much we'll be singling out things as much as talking about the kind of the overall idea of Perrin's storyline here.
Okay, and Scott, I got a job for you. There's a point where I said out loud, save that for spoilers. Put it in the comments so I don't have to watch the whole hour for 2 hours or whatever you got.
But yeah, go ahead and put it in there if you can, if you remember. If not,
I'll go ahead and watch it through again just to see what I wanted to say.
All right. Well, then we'll see y'all next time. I don't know what else we're going to talk about, but we're going to talk about RFK Jr. because.
Oh yeah, because he's got 12 questions that I'm supposed to answer for him.
Yeah, we might not do all 12 of them, but whichever ones are the most interesting to us, and then my kind of general thoughts.
Then we're going to be fishing the rest of the weekend, so we'll be talking, and because you're not handling fish most of the time you're fishing. It's about hours of hang time and about 10 minutes of fun. So
that's why they call it fishing, not catching.
Yeah, we'll figure out something, and we'll be talking about Wheel of Time as well.
All right, we'll see y'all then.
Yep.